Okay guys, welcome back. So we're doing the spinal cord. Let me do a breakdown and kind of an organization for what we're going to have for the final exam. Everything that we focus on from here on out is going to be just nerves. So it's going to be the brain, the spinal cord, all the nerves associated with both. And let's do a breakdown and organization of what that is. So CNS, central nervous system, is the brain and spinal cord. So parts of the brain, parts of the spinal cord, that's all central to this whole pathway. A plug-in, like an extension cord that plugs into a wall outlet, that is the peripheral nervous system. Everything that is not the brain or not the spinal cord is peripheral. It's everything else. So cranial nerves and spinal nerves, although I hear the word cranial, which refers to brain, it's a nerve, so it's a plug-in. It's almost like drawing this and saying that this is the brain, that's the spinal cord. That's an awesome rendition, right? And then here's a plug-in, right? So I have all these different nerves that are extending off of both the brain and spinal cord. Anything that extends off of it is considered the peripheral nervous system. And let's break down what that is. So peripheral nervous system, there's a motor component to it, and there's a sensory component to it. And so we're just going to open up the motor and say a subdivision of the motor is something we can control versus something we can't control. So we have somatic nervous system, which is a part of the pathways that we can control. We can control our skeletal muscles. So somatic nervous system goes to that. Sensations, we can do the same. We break it down into somatic, going to the body, like the extremities, versus going to the internal organs, which are autonomic. So autonomic nervous system, ANS, which has sympathetic and parasympathetic, we'll cover that later, is involuntary. So I'm just going to write voluntary. That means we don't have any control over it. Do you have control over your heart and your stomach? No, you don't. What about your skeletal muscles, your arms? You can move them. Yes, so you have control, so that's voluntary. Well, I said before that there's something called SAD-MEV, right? And I said, what is SAD-MEV? SAD, sensory afferent dorsal, MEV, motor efferent ventral. So even if we've broken this down before, it's good to remind yourself that this is essentially the final exam. So motor, if I stick my hand on the hot stove, then I sense the information. It goes up and into the brain through afferent pathway. Afferent moves toward the brain. It ascends to the brain. And motor moves out and exits the brain through efferent pathways. So sensory afferent dorsal, motor efferent ventral. And now, same thing. So we have two different routes. We can either go through the spinal cord to get to the brain or just essentially stop at the spinal cord. Cranial nerves, there are 12 cranial nerves. We will memorize all of them, but we'll have fun memorizing them. So how do you remember how many pairs of spinal nerves and how many pairs of cranial nerves you have? Well, that's easy. Baskin-Robbins has how many flavors? It advertises 31, right? 31 flavors of Baskin-Robbins. So I remember 31 pairs, 31 flavors of Baskin-Robbins I want to eat in a 1 year. So how many months in a year? 12. So I want to eat 31 flavors of Baskin-Robbins in 12 months. So there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves and only 12 pairs of cranial nerves that we'll cover later, and you will know all of them by heart. So that's essentially what you're going to be studying the rest of the semester.